Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give everybody one more minute to log on and join the webinar before we get started. All right, well, we're at 6:01 here, so let's get things going. Good evening, and thank you all for joining us tonight. On behalf of the CCI BC Board of Directors, welcome to tonight's session, all about roofing maintenance, an exclusive evening event presented by Design Roofing. My name is Nicole Daniels, and I am a CCI BC Director, and I support both the Education and Communications Committees. I'm also the Business Development Manager for Western Canada for NORMAC. I'm going to be the moderator this evening, and I'd like to start by introducing the Canadian Condominium Institute, otherwise known as CCI. CCI is a national nonprofit organization providing education to strata councils and boards across the country. We are the country's only national association devoted to condos and education. We have 18 chapters coast to coast, and at CCI BC, we provide education and resources through a variety of webinar event series. We are now well into our year with only one more event in 2023 after tonight, which is next week's EV charging webinar. You can sign up for that on our website at www.ccibcchapter.ca. We also have our magazine coming out in a few weeks and a full curriculum of webinar events in the new year. So make sure you are signed up to receive our newsletter and stay informed about all of our programming. I want to go through a little bit of housekeeping for this evening if you haven't attended one of our webinars before. As this is a webinar event, only the presenter's audio and video are active. All audience members, their audio and video have been disabled. So no worries about how you came dressed tonight. We can't see you, but we do want to encourage you to engage with us and to interact. So we have a few other options for you. First is the chat function, and we encourage you to provide any commentary or feedback, ask any technical questions in that chat. Any questions that you would like to direct towards our speaker this evening, please put these in the Q&A function, and we will be looking at these throughout the webinar and answering any remaining questions at the end of the session. We'll do our best to get through as many questions as possible, but if we do run out of time, you will have an opportunity to follow up with Kim after the fact and ask any questions at that point. And of course, this session is recorded and will be available to all those who follow CCI BC following this event. So next, I'd like to introduce and thank our event sponsor for this exclusive event opportunity. As you all know, without the support of our sponsors, we would not be able to put on this the excellent educational programming that we offer. All of our board members are volunteers, and while we do have an amazing administrative team that helps us operate behind the scenes, we would not be able to have them without the help of our sponsors. So thank you so much to Design Roofing and Sheet Metal Ltd. They are a leading roofing company serving the Lower Mainland since 1984, specializing in industrial, commercial, and multi-unit residential roofing. They excel in maintenance and repairs, offering peace of mind through comprehensive picture reports. Design Roofing is also a member of the Roofing Contractors Association of BC and Core Safety Certified, ensuring their customers are receiving the highest standards in safety and quality. Their outstanding safety record, rapid response, and 24/7 emergency service staffed by real professionals distinguish them from the competition. With over a century of industry expertise and an in-house metal fabrication shop, Design Roofing is equipped to solve even the most challenging roofing issues. So thank you to Design Roofing, who is also one of our gold sponsors this year. I would also like to now introduce our speaker. I'd like everyone to welcome Ms. Kimberly Wallace. She is the Vice President of Design Roofing. She has been working in the roofing industry for over 17 years, holding a variety of positions to create a well-rounded professional journey. She has an honors business degree from the Ivy Business School at Western University. Kim prefers a hands-on approach to management, working closely with all divisions in the company to ensure high-quality standards for each and every customer. When not working, you can find Kim spending time with her horses and her dogs. Tonight, Kim will teach us about the importance of roof maintenance, giving consideration to how weather impacts various roof systems and what specific items can be identified and addressed to prevent these issues and maximize the health and lifespan of your roof. We'll have a couple of poll questions throughout, and again, we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the session. With that, we're going to go ahead and test out our Zoom polls. If you've attended a CCI BC webinar before, you know that we like to encourage audience participation as much as we can. So let's go ahead and start with an easy question for everyone. You'll see the poll question pop up on your screen. So please go ahead and answer these questions. Are you participating as a strata council member, a property manager, a unit owner, or another trade or business partner professional member? I'll give everyone a few moments to get their answers in. Looks like we have the majority of everyone, with 90% coming from the Strata Council audience. Thank you so much for joining us. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Kim.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. So thank you all for joining. I know there's lots of other exciting things to do on a Thursday night, but to learn about roofing is probably the most exciting. I know you guys are looking forward to this. So we're going to start by talking about the Roofing Contractor Association, as this is key in determining the different trades in the roofing industry that you use, the core safety program, and then why roof maintenance is important and the different roof systems on how you maintain them. Then we'll go into leak investigations and attic and condensation. And then at the end, there's a Q&A. But as Nicole mentioned, feel free to ask questions throughout and we'll answer them at appropriate times. Okay, so what is the RCA, Roofing Contractor Association? It ensures the highest standards for roofing practice, material use, and worker training. What it does for you guys is ensures you're protected and you have the best quality companies working on your roof, because it is a huge investment that you're dealing with. The OCA requires annual information to make sure you have an experienced management team and the company's financially stable. So you know they're going to be around when you come calling. Proper insurance and bonding is very important on big projects. And then core certification, which we'll get into the next slide. The number of Red Seal workers. So Red Seal ticketed roofers is actually an internationally renowned program. So if you have a Red Seal ticket, it's recognized anywhere around the world. And the OCA has an excellent apprenticeship program. It's, if you ever go over the Golden Ears Bridge at Langley, it's on the right-hand side there, the big red building. And they do training every winter for all the any member companies and their employees to make sure they have the best skills for you guys. So core certification, what this is the higher level of safety standards above WCB. It is committed to reducing human and financial costs in the workplace injuries, because roofing, yes, it's important, but the most important part of it is the safety aspect. We're up on roofs. You have to make sure that you limit any risk and have the proper safety in place. Being core certified, which Design Roofing is also a member, requires annual audits. So we're actually going through our audit right now. And they just want to make sure that what you're doing on paper is what our technicians are doing. So it includes interviews, includes site visits, really is very thorough to make sure the companies you use are properly qualified. Okay, so what happens when you use an unqualified, uncertified roofing company? One of the things I find with roofing is that anybody with a pickup truck and a ladder can say they're a roofer. And you want to make sure that you don't use that, because you're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars in these assets on the condos and the townhouses, and you need to make sure they have proper insurance, You don't want to have any WCB fines. Actually, some WCB has started fining stratas and property management companies as well when companies are hired that don't have the proper insurance. So always ask for insurance and WCB. It's really important. How are they completing the work? Are they completing their work? Make sure you're getting picture reports, and then serious injuries. The safety is number one. So ask if they are core certification. So we'll do a quick poll here. How many people attending reside in or manage a low-rise apartment or townhouse or high-rise tower? We'll give a minute here. Nicole, I can't see the results, so I think you'll have to.
When you're ready, I will end them and share those results. Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see them, everybody. That looks like we've got pretty much everyone. I'll go ahead and end it, and I will share those with you all, so you should be able to see now.
Okay, so it's a close 60% low-rise or townhouse and 40% tower. That's great, because today we'll talk about both townhouses as well as towers, so you understand how to properly manage your roof systems. So before we get into the roof systems, we're going to keep talking a little bit about safety because it's so important when it comes to roofing. And it's always key questions you should ask when you're hiring a contractor. So we'll talk about the fall protection hierarchy. So guardrail setup. This is something you'll see if you're ever driving around the city and they're in the middle of a roof replacement project. You'll see guardrails around the exterior of the building. And this is really useful and required for a roof replacement project. However, it's not practical if you're doing a 1 or 2 day job. So you wouldn't use this for maintenance or repairs. Also, it doesn't work on a sloped roof. So this would be for a flat roof replacements. Something really important if you have a townhouse roof is installing temporary anchors. The majority of townhouse complexes don't have permanent anchors. So any work that needs to be done on your roof, whether it's HVAC, roofing, gutter cleaning, dryer duct, they need to be installing temporary anchors. And what happens here is you go up on the roof, you remove the ridge cap, you find the truss, which is the structural, you install the anchor with the screws. Then once the work is completed, you remove it and put a new ridge cap. So it is a time-consuming process. We've timed it out, and each anchor installing and removing is about 7 minutes. So you think, depending on the size of your complex, you could have to install up to 100 anchors because each technician needs their own anchor. So although it's a time-consuming process, it's very important and WCB requires it. So this will always be factored into when you're doing roof maintenance on a sloped roof. So good question to ask the contractors what they're using for anchors. Scaffolding setup. This is becoming more and more prominent. There's a lot of buildings out there that were designed to look pretty, but not always the most functional. So for example, this one, a downpipe needed to be replaced way up at the top, and it was too tall for a ladder. And there was, yeah, we'll just go back. Not sure what happened there. So scaffolding is really important if you need to access any areas and you can't get a boom lift in. The thing with boom lifts is that they, if you look in this picture, sorry, Nicole, I can, we'll go back to the scaffolding page. Yeah, so they have all the trees and bushes and everything in here, so you can't get a boom lift in. So scaffolding can be expensive, but it's safe. It's the most safe and effective way to access some areas. So you need to make sure that you can ask for a breakdown, because this repair might be a 5-minute repair, but it needs $5,000 of scaffolding, unfortunately. So boom lifts are really well used. You'll see a lot of gutter companies use them, roofing contractors, and they're great because they reduce the number of anchors you have to install on the roof, because you can use the boom lift as an anchor, as well as they're more time effective because you can move around the complex. So if you have a townhouse complex, this would be very common unused for any roof maintenance. There are different WCB requirements that have just come into play probably 2 or 3 years ago. So you always want to make sure your company's up to date on those. Okay, so let's talk about roof maintenance and why it's important. It's so similar to a car. You buy a new car, you can't wait 10 years to do anything. You have to do an oil change, rotate the tires, replace the brakes. A roof you can't leave for 20 years and expect it to be in great condition. A roof represents 5 to 7% of the capital cost, but cover 100% of the building and its contents. So this quote was actually taken from a property management company website, and it's, "We are responsible for all preventative maintenance and ongoing maintenance functions, including janitorial, snow removal, landscaping, garbage collection, and HVAC." What is missing? Roofing. Out of sight, out of mind. Most people forget about the roof until you have water dripping on your head. So today we're here to change that, to make you have the roof at the top of your mind to avoid major issues. This picture is a crazy story. That's actually a drain screen on the drain, and it was left because they weren't doing maintenance. And how this was found is because they had water pouring down the walls, and the technicians went up on the roof and were able to unplug the drain, and that's what was found in it. So it looks like an animal of some sort, but it's actually just debris built up in the drain. So I love this chart because it really talks about the minor proactive versus major reactive. So the green line is what you want. You want to get a new roof, start maintenance right away, and it's minor items: debris removal, drain cleaning, some sealant renewal. And then each year you can budget. You have it in your budget. You know exactly what the cost is. With slight increases for inflation, your roof can last 2 to 30 years if it's installed right with proper maintenance. The red line is what happens when you do nothing for 10 or 15 years, and then you start doing work. So not only is it more expensive, the age of your roof doesn't last as long. Upholding warranties is really important. That's always that fine print that nobody reads, is that unless you do maintenance, your warranty isn't actually valid. And then protect your investment. Your roof is a huge investment, and it protects your building, so you don't want any structural damage. So let's talk about that. Deficiency versus maintenance, navigating the warranty game. Your roof warranties are only valid if you complete the maintenance. And people often say, "Oh, my roof is brand new." I talked to somebody yesterday that said, "My roof is brand new, it's 5 years old, it's under warranty, I don't need to do anything." But in order to uphold that warranty, you have to do roof maintenance. And because you might also have to do semi-annual roof maintenance, depending on the warranty and what it requires. Always ask for records of any maintenance you're getting completed, so that if a warranty item does come up, you can say, "Hey, I've been doing maintenance, look at these reports," making sure everything gets done. So typical roof systems you encounter, and then we'll go talking about the roof maintenance as well. Before we go into there, let's do another poll. My roof is under warranty. I do not need to complete roof maintenance. Is this true or false? And again, after we'll give it about 20 seconds, and then Nicole can show the results. False. Excellent. You guys have been listening. I appreciate that. Yeah, so it's actually false, because if you have your roof's under warranty, you definitely have to complete roof maintenance. So now let's go, if you have your roof and it's under warranty or not, what do we do? What type of maintenance do you do? So if you have a flat roof membrane, we're going to talk about a few different types: EPDM, PVC, TPO, which are all single ply roof systems. And then there's also a liquid membrane, tar and gravel, and 2-ply SBS membrane. And a little hint is, my favorite is the 2-ply SBS membrane, which we'll end with on the flat roof membranes. So the single ply membranes, and they're exactly that, single ply. I wish I had, you guys could feel samples, but the virtual doesn't quite work that way yet. So the whole idea of the single ply is exactly 1 ply. So EPDM is similar to a bike tire rubber. It's black for the most part. It's thin. It's very easy to puncture. If I was to drop my pen on it, you can put a hole in it. If we look at the system here, you have the wood deck here, which could be steel or concrete. You have insulation. You have a rubber adhesive because it's glued down, and then you have the single ply EPDM membrane. So TPO, PVC, and liquid could also all be the same similar setups, and we'll talk about them in a few minutes. But this is a conventional roof system on how it's set. So EPDM, as I mentioned, it's quite easy to puncture. So this is something I'd recommend if you had a big warehouse that it doesn't really matter if there's a leak. Yes, you don't want a leak, but it's not a big deal. I would never recommend putting this on a residential roof because it's quite easy to puncture and holes can form, causing leaks. So if you have an EPDM roof, you probably are doing quite a big few repairs, or maybe it was installed quite well, but the lifespan is about 10 years. So where people like the EPDM roofs is they 100-foot rolls, big rolls, craned up to the roof, rolled out, glued down, and put some rocks over it, and then it's done. So it is more cost effective, but it doesn't last as long, and it's more headache for you guys because you have leaks. TPO single ply is similar to EPDM. It's a little bit thicker because it's reinforced. This is also sometimes a white roof. People like it for the reflective qualities. As you can see in the left-hand picture, it doesn't stay white for very long. It gets dirty really easily, and it's also quite easy to puncture. Perfect timing. We'll go to this next slide. So inverted roof systems is an opposite of what we just went through, where we talked about the roof deck, the insulation, and the membrane. This one, if we look here, you have the roof deck, in this case concrete, then you have the membrane directly on the roof deck, then the insulation, and then gravel ballast, probably a filter fabric in the middle. This is common for tower roofs, especially downtown, new developments. They often do these, and they do it because they put a liquid membrane which is not UV resistant. It's kind of like a goop material, excuse me, and it can't be exposed to the elements, which is why this upside down roof, also known as, can protect it. So the problem with an inverted roof or upside down roof is to access the membrane, you have to open it all up. So every time you have an issue, you're removing the insulation, you're removing the filter fabric and the gravel and exposing the membrane. So it can get costly to repair. Also, often with the liquid membrane is the insulation's been stuck to it. So when you remove the insulation, it rips it, sorry, and you have to replace it. So although the inverted roof protects the membrane, it often isn't the best solution if you want a long-term roof, unless you put a different membrane underneath. But if you have a new development and you've moved in and this is what you have, when you're doing maintenance, you wouldn't expose the membrane every year. You would expose around the penetrations and seal those areas. And then when you have to be a little bit reactive, unfortunately, when you have leaks is when you'd expose areas to access the membrane. So a BUR or tar and gravel roof, also called 4-ply roof, this used to be a very good system. This would have been the most common system 40 years ago. And it's sometimes called 4-ply because it has the asphalt and the gravel and 4 plies of it. So what's great about this system back then is it lasted a long time, didn't have a ton of maintenance. This asphalt's not the same quality anymore, so you don't see it getting installed. You'd replace it with a new 2-ply SBS roof. So if you do have a tar and gravel right now, you should be budgeting for a roof replacement. So some of the maintenance areas you'd see is if you had a leak, you'd go up to the roof, and on this left-hand side, the roof looks pretty good. You see all the gravel. But what you have to do is spud, which is pretty much like sweeping the gravel, and then you expose areas like this one, which is a split in the roof and the felt plies, and that can cause a leak. So you're going to have membrane wear and tear, and if you still have a tar and gravel, you probably have quite a few splits. Unfortunately, once a roof starts splitting, it's going to keep splitting really until it needs a replacement. So, as I mentioned, this is my favorite roof. I know most people probably don't have a favorite roof, but I spend a lot of time on roofs. So, 2-ply SBS roof. So exactly how we talked about the single ply, this is 2-ply system. So it's reinforced with 2 different layers. And what's great, if we look at this drawing on the left-hand side, is this one has a wood deck, but again, you could have concrete, you could have steel. You have a vapor barrier here, which isn't always required, but in this case, it's an option. Then you have insulation. Then you have a torchable SOPA board, because you can't torch to insulation. Then you have the first ply, which is the base sheet, and then the cap sheet is the gray one. And then what's really special about this roof is what's called stripping. So at the walls, you have these 3-foot pieces that go around any wall or upturn as in a curve. And what it allows is redundancy, because not only do you have 2 plies on the field, then you have an extra 2 plies up over the walls. So you have the redundancy of 4 plies there, plus they're independent. So every building moves, it's just a fact. So when you have a building moves and they're independent, they can move by themselves, so they don't cause creases and splits along the wall. Very good roof system if it's installed right. So we look at the picture here on the left-hand side. This is the flam, or also called base. See how it's black? And then on the right-hand side, you have the cap sheet, which in this case is gray, but it can come in multiple colors. Gray and brown would be the most common. There's black, there's blue, there's red, there's white. There's lots of colors. We actually installed a green and red one on a building that somebody wanted. So you can have Christmas colors if you want. We just look here at the wall. You see these pieces, these 3-foot pieces, and that's what the stripping is. So it does add more labor and material to your job, but it's so important on the roof. So even though it's a great roof, it still requires annual maintenance and repairs. So some common areas that you'd see is on the right-hand top side, we see granule loss. So the gray, or whatever color it is, but we talked about the gray here, the cap sheet has granules on it, and they protect the membrane from UV rays. Over time, with the weather, wind, rain, etc., you might lose some granules. So this is something you would do every annual maintenance, repair certain areas. In this case, you see how black it is. This roof's been left quite a bit of time, and now it has a quite heavy granule loss that needs a larger repair. That's the whole idea with annual maintenance. You can do things in phases. The top left-hand corner, these are called blisters. So similar to what you get on your finger, it's a pocket of air. And blister itself is not a huge deal. However, when it's on seams like this, it can pop, and it allows water ingress. So you want to make sure you cut those open and repair them with new 2-ply. This has a puncture in it, which, yes, is not good, but the chances of it getting through all the layers is minimal. So it's something you want to repair, but it's not as urgent as if you had a puncture in an EPDM roof. And then we have an open seam here at a corner that could just be from wear and tear and movement in the building. Excuse me. A little tickle. Okay, so now let's talk about vegetation. We do live in a rainforest, so you're going to have a lot of vegetation on your roof. On the left-hand side, that is not a green roof. That is a moss-filled roof. Sorry about that. So that's a very neglected roof, and not only is that really bad for your roof, it's also a fire hazard, because if somebody flicked out a cigarette, that can go up in flames. These bottom ones are not potted plants. They are actually drains, and they've been neglected again. So you never want your drains, because a big thing is, do you remember last December, we had that snowstorm, it was cold, and then it rained. And a lot of roofs, the drains were frozen, and then they expanded when they melted, and the drains weren't allowing water in, so the roofs were flooding. It caused some major issues. Sun, rain, heat, and cold. Your roof never has a good day. So another thing with the vegetation, you want to be careful you just don't go up and remove it or have your caretaker remove it, because the roots can grow all in the membrane. So if you go rip it out, it's going to rip all the roots out and pull the membrane up and can cause major issues. Roofs are designed that water goes to the drains. So even debris that are not near the drains needs to be removed from the roof, because the water will go into the drains. Next, we'll talk about patio decks. So a patio deck is a roof as well. People always forget about it, but if it's over living space, it needs a proper roof system. And you want to make sure the drains are clear in that case. Often you have paving stones or decking boards, so you want to make sure the drains are properly identified and cleared. So penetrations would be one of the most common causes of leaks. And that's, as we mentioned, the building moves. So the base of the penetration can move. And in these couple of cases, they've been neglected. So on the right-hand side, look at how rusty this is. So a fairly new RCA, Roofing Contractor Association standard, is the base of all vents when they get installed need to be sealed 4 inches up with a liquid membrane. And what this does is allows the water and it to be waterproof pretty much and not rust out. This one did not have that, and it caused holes and needed to be replaced. So if we can seal it before the holes form, then it can be repaired, more cost effective. On the left-hand side, we have a pipe penetration. It was missing a stack cap. It seems like a simple thing, but there is a little space in between the stack and the pipe that can allow water in, and you never want that to happen. Some more penetrations here. We have ducting. The ducting, the seams on the ducting could be deteriorated, and those need to be sealed. And then rust, because we live in the rainforest, as we mentioned, and there's so much moisture in the air, things rust very easily. And when you leave them alone, the holes will form. But if you seal these at this point, you can just paint them over to some really good coatings, and it will work just as well. On this left-hand side, I like to talk about this one because this was a vent and somebody was installing a new boiler and needed another penetration, but instead of installing another roofing penetration, they just opened this one up and shoved the wires in. So not only is that an electrical issue, it's also a big opening to the roof and into the unit, which can cause leaks. So if you need any alterations done, always call a proper roofing company. Bird deterrents. So this time of year is actually the best time to deal with bird deterrents, because in the summer, seagulls are a protected species, so you can't remove the nests when they have babies in them. But now is the time, if you had bird issues in the summer, deal with it now. You can install bird spikes, netting, spiders. There's a whole bunch of different solutions to your bird problems, depending on how bad it is, what type of birds. So that's always a good thing to deal with in the fall too. Okay, so let's do another poll. Which roof system is the most reliable on flat roofs? And we have EPDM, TPO, or 2-ply SBS. Give another second, and then Nicole can put the results up. 95% is 2-ply SBS. Good job. Yes, it's the most reliable. It's, as it mentioned, it is 2-ply, so it's more redundancy, and it has the great stripping along all the walls. So good job, everyone. Now we'll get into sloped roof systems, and we'll talk about some different shingles, cedar, concrete and clay tiles, and metal roofing. So 3-tab asphalt shingles. This would be probably, if you have an older roof system, this is what you're going to have on it. They don't manufacture them anymore in a lot of colors, so you wouldn't see them getting installed as often now. The laminate shingles, which is the bottom left-hand corner, this is what mostly is installed, and they come in a wide range of colors. So the top left-hand corner is the asphalt shingles, which is still a good roof, but they only are making a couple colors right now. So if you have to get a repair, you might not be able to get the same color match. On the right-hand side is T-lock shingles. If you have T-locks, you really need a replacement. Those have been discontinued for probably 15 years. To repair, you actually have to cut them out. So it's quite a bit labor intensive. And then the right-hand bottom corner is cedar. So cedar used to be a really good roof 20 years ago, but the grade is just not the same anymore. So I wouldn't recommend installing it. It's also really expensive. So I'd say about 3 years ago, a bundle of cedar was $35 to $40. I just placed a purchase order this week for some cedar, and this is just the bundles. It was almost $200. So that's a huge increase in just a few years. So it's quite expensive. You don't see it getting installed too much on new builds or replacements. However, I did see a complex recently that had a new cedar roof, and it looks nice. I just don't think it lasts as long for the price. So this is an example of laminate shingles. As I mentioned, you can get a whole bunch of different colors and styles, but this is the gist, and this is a common color. So what do we do for maintenance? Well, a very common maintenance item is low nails, which is on this top right-hand corner. And this, what happens is, if you ever see a package of shingles, it actually has instructions on the shingles on how you install them, and they have a line across them on where you're supposed to nail. But when you're getting a new build or a new roof installed, they are normally using nail guns. So they're going along and nailing along. It's hard to stay on the line that accurate, so you end up getting low nails and high nails, and the low nails get exposed to the elements and then can rust, which then can cause leaks. So this is a very common maintenance item, is sealing low nails. Some other examples would be installing new shingles and ridge cap. This has ridge venting, which some attics have ridge venting instead of vent separately. And then here we have a vent that looks like a squirrel or a raccoon tried to get in, probably tried to get into a nice warm attic for the winter. So we seal, well, this one needs to be replaced, but if it was in good condition, we would seal the nails, this pipe penetration, you'd seal any exposed areas. So debris and gutters and moss on roof surfaces. This is really common, and this is again something that's going to have to be done every year, or maybe more depending on how many trees you have in your building. Shingles are designed that water goes downhill. So if your gutters are full of debris and gets built up, water's actually going uphill. You're going to get water behind the shingles. And that's really important. Nobody wants that. I actually had this issue at my house because I didn't clean my gutters fast enough. But luckily, I know a good roofing company, so they were able to fix it for me. But you want to make sure you keep your gutters clear. So we'll move on and talk a bit more about moss. So people always ask, how do you remove moss? So what do you do about moss? Moss is something unfortunately, we live in a rainforest, was going to be moss. The best way to remove it is actually a combination between sweeping and hand picking, because you don't want to damage the shingles. That's the worst. You never want to pressure wash or scrape your shingles, because it will remove the granules. And there's no point of damaging removing the moss if you have to replace the shingle. So in this situation, this was hand-picked and brushed off, and then a treatment was applied to help reduce future growth. There's no miracle cures, unfortunately. We'll look at the next picture here. And this actually, I don't know if you saw this in the news, but somebody used laundry detergent on these roofs, and the next day it rained, and it caused a huge issue with the salmon spawning river. So there was actually a lot of fines, environmental fines. So unfortunately, no miracle cures. Do not use Tide on your roof, because this is what happens. So some more inspections and maintenance that have to do with sloped roofs is soffits. Soffits is something that in the wind, we had that big windstorm last week, you could have a loose soffit, and you have to be careful because you don't want pests or animals getting into your attic through your soffits. So this is an example of a bird's nest. They were making a nice home because they had a missing soffit. So what are some roof maintenance items completed on a sloped townhouse roof? Oh, sorry about that. I went to the wrong one. We'll bring up the poll here. So we have debris removal, exposed nails, shingle repairs, or all of the above. Give it a minute. I think we can probably put the answer up now.
Sure, sorry, I apologize as we're sharing a screen and I'm trying to move things around so that I can see the Q&A in the chat and launch the polls, and it's advancing screen. So I'm going to stop and share this, but we have a question for you, Kim, while I'm sharing the results that I thought would be good before we move too far away. But we have a question about 30-second moss killer. Is it okay to be used on laminate shingle roofs?
Yes, it actually is a pretty good product. And yes, it is okay to be used. I believe Home Depot or some of those places sell it. I've used it myself before. Good question.
Thank you.
So everybody got the answer right. It's all of the above. So all those items are something. And the thing with roof maintenance is you don't need to do everything every year. You're not going to do every exposed nail or every little crack in the shingle. You're going to do the most critical items to help with your budget. And then next year you'll do additional items, additional phases. Okay, so another sloped roof item or type is concrete or clay tiles, and you don't see these too much in the Lower Mainland. These are more popular in California or Arizona and hotter climates, but they definitely are possible to see here, and they can be repaired and they do need to be maintained. So you'll get broken concrete tiles. The thing, if you do have a concrete or clay tile roof, you should always buy extra because they stop manufacturing that color or that style. So you see in this picture, it looks like the same style, but it's a different color. The bottom one, when installing a new tile. You can also repair with lead sheets. So that's really common if you can't get the right tile. Metal roofs. Metals are great roofs. They're just not very common in residential, but if you have a commercial building or industrial, a metal roof lasts a long time and has minimal maintenance. It is quite a bit more money to install than shingles, but because it lasts longer. This is an example of just a front lower roof heavy metal, and then this is actually our shop in Port Coquitlam, and this roof is about 40 years old, and it was recoated with this paint not last year, about 10 years ago. And I'd say it will last another 30 years. So there's some really good options for metal roofs on making sure the longevity. So although there is minimal maintenance, there is still some maintenance. You can now get exposed. Sorry, we'll go back a couple slides here. Yeah, perfect. You can get hidden fastener roof systems, but if you have an older metal roof, you're going to have exposed fasteners, and those can rust and need to be replaced. And then in this right-hand corner, this metal roof is starting to rust, and that just needs a coating on it. Okay, green roofs. So I know somebody actually called and asked if we were talking about green roofs tonight. So I want to make sure I talk about these. So I find everybody wants to talk about green roofs until they hear the price, because they are expensive to install. But the most important part of a green roof, and I can't emphasize this enough, is the membrane. So we look at this drawing of all the layers, the waterproofing membrane. If you're going to install a green roof, you need to make sure you have a really solid waterproof membrane, and I would recommend a 2-ply SBS membrane, because if any issues occur, you have to dig up all of these layers to get down to there. So this is not only just if you have a living roof, the flat areas, also to do with planters. Planters are very common. and they're very common that they leak because the waterproofing membrane wasn't done properly. So these are some areas that you really have to be careful on making sure it's installed right. If you do have a green roof, there is maintenance still required. Drain cleaning, sealing the penetrations, checking the walls and the curbs. So you want to still do maintenance if you have a green roof system. As far as the vegetation on them, a landscaper would be involved if it's extensive, because you can have anything. You can have herbs, you can have big trees, you can have grass. There's a lot of different options on a green roof system. So these are some pictures of some nice green roofs. This Olympic Village is the bottom right-hand corner, and you can actually see that those shapes of athletes. So you have a hockey player, a curler, I think another hockey player. It's kind of cool. If you drive by the bridge, you can see those. So we have another poll here. Roofing work can be completed in the winter months. True or false? We didn't really talk about this, so I'll go into a bit of this once we have the answer. Well, let's see what people think. I think we could probably bring up results. True, excellent. Majority of people said true, and that is correct. So we have such mild winters now, or not now, we have such mild winters here compared to other parts of the country that roofing can definitely be completed in the winter months. There is some work that needs dry days, but we do get enough dry days. Today was a beautiful day. Roofing work can be completed if it's done correctly. All the manufacturers have guidelines for their products with temperature guidelines. So as long as the company you're using is aware of those, you can get the work done, because you don't want to wait all winter and into the summer, and you could have so much interior damage. Which leads us to the next thing, which we're going to talk about: leaks. And the key with leaks, report immediately to minimize the damage. Sometimes we'll get calls that say, oh, my roof started leaking last month. Well, in that meantime, you have all this structural damage and that could be occurring because of all the water and moisture getting into your building, into your attic or into the walls, or would go, depending on what it is, type of deck it is. So the leak investigation process is quite complicated to do it correctly. It's not something that you should just go up there, throw a bucket of concrete on it, and move on. Actually, I'd recommend never using concrete on your roof, because not only is it difficult to remove, it actually can cause major issue with the drains, because roofs are designed that water goes to the drains. So it means it's going to bring the concrete into the drain and can actually cause structural issues with your drain pipes. So don't use concrete on your roof. So the proper investigation process is you go inside. You always want to get to the highest point. So if you have drywall, it might need to be cut. If you have a ceiling tile, you might need to remove the ceiling tile. You always want to get to the highest point. Then you're going to inspect that area. Then you're going to measure it out. So let's say the leak is right above me and I'm about 10 feet from the wall. So you go on the roof 10 feet away, measure it out. You're going to inspect the membrane. If the roof is one of those inverted roof system with all the layers, you're going to have to open it all up, determine the makeup of the system, maybe do a cut test, which is cutting into the membrane to find out the different layers. Then once you find the defect, you're going to repair it, reassemble the roof system. And then always ask for a full report of what was completed with pictures so you understand what you're paying for. So leaks are really important to be dealt with right away to avoid further damage. So along with leaks, you could also have condensation issues, and especially at this time of year with the cold weather. So that brings us talking about attics, and attics are crucial, and attic inspections are really important if you have issues. Let's get those solved. So on the left-hand side, we have a normal attic, which is you have cool, fresh air coming into the soffit vents and leaving through the attic space. You have your bathroom or kitchen exhaust fan ducting out of the roof. Perfect, easy, good system. On the right-hand side, you have all this insulation is blocking your soffit vents. And then you have your ducting, you have no ducting, so you have your fan going right into the attic. So you have this hot air staying in the attic, circulating, creating moisture and creating condensation, which can cause, it can seem like you have a leak, but really it's condensation from your attic, from lack of ventilation. So a few things you can try is, we call it the tissue test. If you hold a piece of tissue paper or paper towel up to your fan and it doesn't hold, it means your fan's not working enough. So you want to make sure your fans are working well enough. And then in your attic, there's some different areas that you have to make sure are properly repaired if there's any issues. So vapor barrier, which is similar to like a poly plastic. Water can travel, but you want to have it sealed so that you don't have water and condensation. The other major aspect is if the ducting is not attached, as in this situation, and that means all that hot air is going in your attic. In this case, we have a loose insulation, so again, it's not properly sealed. And then a baffle, what a baffle is a piece of styrofoam, and it just allows that the insulation doesn't block the soffit, so you have airflow. So if you ever have attic issues, you should get a proper attic inspection and getting it repaired. And often in a complex, if one unit has attic issues, they might all have attic issues, unfortunately. So if you have one of these issues or you don't have a proper maintenance plan, you want to make sure you find an RCA, Roofing Contractor Association member, and you can find them at this website, or you can call Design Roofing and we can help you out. And you want to make sure that you have a proper company working on your roof, doing annual maintenance. I think we have one more poll. So how often should a professional roofer inspect your roof? Let's see what everybody thinks. Is it every 10 years, every 1 year, or just never? I hope you don't say never, but okay, we can bring up the results whenever everybody's done. Perfect. Okay, majority said every 1 year. Yes, highly recommend. Doesn't mean you have to do the maintenance if you can't budget for it, maybe every 2 years. But getting it inspected every year to make sure you don't have any major issues is really important. Thank you, Nicole. Close that. And we can go to the Q&A. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, if we don't have any questions that are coming in, we will still be accepting them, but I am going to move ahead and I'd like to share Kim's information with you. So if you think of something following this webinar, you can always follow up with her, or you can check the site that she just referenced on the last. If you are not impressed, but I doubt that that is the case, please do check in with Kim if you have any questions. And thank you to Lisa. We're glad that this was an informative session for you and that you all are able to take very much away from this session. Cheryl, will we be getting the slides? Yeah, well, we do share the recording as well, so you have that, but I don't see why we can't share the slide deck with you as well. So we will make sure that a copy of that goes out in the blast. So make sure that you are signed up to receive our emails, which we send regularly, including follow-up surveys about what you think about our webinars as well. So I believe we are getting fairly close to the end of the session. If there aren't any other questions at this time, I would like to thank Kim and thank Design for their time today and for coming and being here and sharing their insight. I will let you know that, again, we have one more event coming up for 2023, and that is next Tuesday at 6 p.m. And it's all about EV charging in your stratas. We have both an industry professional and a legal opinion coming in to present on this topic. So we hope to see you there. And beyond that, have a wonderful holiday season. Again, thank you so much, Kim, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.